everybody, welcome to the show. I appreciate you tuning in for another brand new review. So, what's in store for you here tonight? Well, folks, another new banger of a horror film has just hit Shudder, and it's already standing up to be one of the best films of the year. Not just in horror, but just in general. And I am so excited to talk to you about this one here tonight. Movie reviews, folks, we are talking The Rule of Jenny Penn. But let's not waste any time, jump right on into things here. If you haven't seen the trailer for The Rule of Jenny Penn before, this tells the story of Judge Stefan Mortensen. After suffering a stroke during sentencing in a trial, Judge Stefan Mortensen now resides in a care home where a deranged resident holds a reign of terror over the other residents living there. Mortensen will be the only one who can hope to put an end of this reign in The Rule of Jenny Penn. And there it is, folks. That is tonight's film. Now, with The Rule of Jenny Penn, I only started hearing chatter about this within like the last month or so. A number of writers and critics that I follow on social media had started talking about it a lot. But outside of knowing that John Lithgow was in it and playing the villain, I didn't really check out a trailer. I didn't read much into it. Every now and then there's a film comes along to where it's just, I'm cool being surprised. I don't need to know anything about it going in. Let me just make it up as I go along. And it turned out this actually worked incredibly well for me in this particular case, going in blind, because had I known a little bit more about it before I caught this film, it seems like the kind of movie that I might actually be a little bit turned off from, might not actually have a deep interest in checking this one out. So what I will say is that if this is a movie that you've been kind of teetering on, whether you're going to check it out or not, it's available on Shudder right now for free. Definitely check it out. And if you're like me, go in blind. It'll enhance the experience on this particular one here. With that said, though, it is a very harrowing story for sure. It presents an unlikely hero who, like, even if he does save the day, Judge Stefan here, that doesn't really save him from himself, ultimately. The entire, like, ordeal of this film, Judge Stefan, again, has suffered a stroke when he was at a recent trial. And as he ends up in this care home, he still maintains this hope that he's going to get better. He's going to recover from what he's gone through and allow him to go on living the same life that he had prior to the events of this film. But as we slowly start to learn over the course of the movie here, we understand that that's not all that likely, unfortunately, that things are just going to get worse and worse and worse for Stefan, and that he needs to start preparing for what his life looks like moving forward. That already, being stuck in a prison of your own body where you don't have control of something that you've controlled for years and years and years of your life. You've done so many things with, and now you're a prisoner in your own body to where you don't always get to make your own decisions. You can't hold yourself up under your own power. You need others to help you do, remedial things like just washing yourself. This is where a lot of the terror truly comes from here in this story. Seeing everything that Jeffrey Rush's Stefan goes through over the course of this film, it is terrorizing because as somebody who's getting older, you never know when that can end up being my reality. And I think a number of people watching who have either maybe gone through something like Stefan does in this, or they have a family member that's gone through it, that terror, that tension really is real. And so I think The Rule of Jenny Penn starts off on a strong foot because even without all of the other stuff that does make this a scary film and a very tenuous film for sure, dealing with everything that Stefan is now living with makes it an extremely uncomfortable watch to sit through. Now, the other side of things, though, we're talking about more tangible scares, more tangible fears here in this film. That's where John Lithgow's Dave Creeley ends up coming in. Dave, again, runs this care home without much opposition. It seems like the staff themselves, they either don't notice, they don't care, or I theorize a little bit based on like the little bit of information we get to learn about Dave throughout this film. I actually theorize that Dave might have some kind of, I don't know, financial lordship over the people that are staffing this care home. There's nothing really like to say that for sure, but it just seems weird that Dave has been running around terrorizing the other residents for decades at this point and seemingly is never getting caught, never getting admonished. And if that's happening, usually that means that either you're really, really good at covering your tracks, which I'm not convinced that Dave is, or you have something that you're holding above everybody else. So I got the feeling that maybe Dave Creeley here is maybe paying off the staff to get away with what he does, but it doesn't really matter because it still makes this care home a prison for Judge Stefan and all the other residents that are living there. And obviously that's going to be very loud and pronounced because we're coming from seeing Judge Stefan sentence another, violent criminal to spend his own time in prison at that point. We're told that from the very beginning. And so the prison of Stefan's body, along with the prison of this care home, obviously there's a lot being thrown at us that we're supposed to be picking up with on this. And it very much strengthens the story that we see all these other residents that are at this home, but that Stefan, even in the state that he's in, he's still the only one that's really standing up to Dave, even in the state that he's in. He knows that this behavior is wrong and that somebody has to put a stop to it. And it's not even a question of, well, if he's not going to do what somebody else does, he takes that on. Judge Stefan takes that on, that this is his responsibility to put a stop to it. And maybe it's just a case that nobody stood up to Dave before. Now, of course, he's been there so long that these other residents probably look at it as this is just the lay of the land and we have to abide in order to survive and get by. And Stefan will slowly learn that. He's fighting Dave and he's fighting his own body. And these blips that Stefan has over the course of the film, they're somewhat portrayed in a bit of a supernatural light. They exaggerate some of the things that Stefan has been seeing and has been encountering. And I think that's supposed to obviously exemplify that his mind really is going and that this is how his mind is trying to make sense of everything that he's dealing with at this point. Again, Jeffrey Rush is tremendous in the role of Stefan. Like I said, we meet him in this courtroom. There's this sense of power, of command, of rule, and of order, which fits in with the job as a judge that he has. But as the audience, and just like Stefan, as the film keeps going on, we keep thinking and expecting that he's going to return to form as he descends further and further into his own hell. And just like Stefan, we have to come to the same realization that you have to find other ways to be strong. That clearly, in this particular set of events that are going on, Stefan's body is not going to be what's strong for him. So he has to look for other things that he can make strong. His mind, his heart, his soul, his spirit, all these things he has to strengthen up because the other things that he's relying on, he can't rely on anymore. And I think Jeffrey Rush effortlessly is able to bring that struggle, that hopelessness to the screen here in this role. On the flip side, John Lithgow, who we've seen play a number of really memorable villains over the years. I've always been partial to Cliffhanger, Quaylen, and I've always been, obviously, a very, very big fan of the Trinity Killer in Dexter, who is making his return, not just in Dexter Resurrection. Arthur Mitchell is going to show up more than likely because Dexter is seeing his past villains, his past sins show up to haunt him as his dark passenger. But also, this limited series about the Trinity Killer is apparently happening, and John Lithgow is expected to return to serve as the narrator of that series as well. So again, Lithgow is known for playing these very, very terrible villains in the past, and I actually think that Dave Creeley here is up there with some of his most memorable ones there. We're only given a small insight into why Dave has this cruel nature, and Lithgow's Dave shows a joy in the depravity and the terror that he brings to this care home. But the titular Jenny Penn, which is a puppet that Dave has on his hand, it's interesting because, we don't really know the backstory when it comes to Dave and this puppet, but as we see what was seen with Stefan later on, when it's suggested that he himself used a puppet as a way to help with his memory issues and these blips, and he rudely and coldly refuses it, it gives us a little hint that maybe this is something that Dave was suffering from at some point being here at this home. Jenny Penn really is like a conscience that's on his shoulder, but in reality, Jenny is really the one that's encouraging more and more of this behavior. So it's not really a cover as much as it is like a partner for Dave, somebody to revel in everything that he's doing. In terms of scares, this is definitely more of a thriller than it is just a straight up horror film. There's tense and stressful scenes and imagery all throughout the film, but the movie relies more on psychological and emotional terror than it does actual scares. It's not a downside because it really, really works in this particular case. And I do think this is one that's going to sit with a lot of you for quite a while. So, let me know in the comments section here what you thought of this one. I know a number of you have had a chance to check this one out at festivals here over the last few months. But if you're going and checking this one out on Shudder, tell me in the comments section what you feel about John Lithgow's Dave Creeley. Does this stand up to some of the other villains that he's presented on screen over the years here? Am I off base by saying it's one of his best roles that he's done? Tell me whatever you're thinking here in the comments section, folks. And yeah, this is for sure still going to be one of the top releases of the year. Again, not just in horror, but just in general. I think this is going to find its way into a lot of top 20 lists by the end of the year. But if you want to stay on top of all the horror content that I'm dropping for all of y'all, the best way to do that is to get subscribed to my link tree. You can do that at linktr.ee/T scary movie. If you get subscribed, that's going to be access to my YouTube page for the video versions of the show, your favorite podcasting platforms, the audio only versions of the show, my Letterboxd page for written reviews and movie rankings throughout the year, to my TikTok page for full episodes, movie news, and movie premieres, my Twitch page for horror gaming, and my Fangoria shop page for a 10% discount for a 20% discount off anything in the Fangoria shop. Take advantage of that, y'all. Hit that subscribe button. Again, I got more great horror content coming your way. We're going to finish up with season 2 of Mayfair Witches. You can go back and check out my reviews for new films like The Woman in the Yard, Death of a Unicorn, and I also covered a couple of new Tales from the Crypt episodes. We were talking Four-Sided Triangle, and we were also talking On a Dead Man's Chest. You don't want to miss any of that. And I got so much stuff coming up for y'all, including Hell of a Summer, Borderline. We're jumping back into Black Mirror. We got so much stuff coming, y'all. But that is it tonight. I appreciate you tuning in. My name is T. We'll be talking scary movies. Stay scared.